We're back with another DC breakdown of Rift of Nations session 24. This is my homebrew campaign from scratch. There's plenty of videos documenting this entire process here on this channel. This is my second channel, Dungeon Coach Plays. Check out the main channel if you haven't already, but I assume that you have if you're here. But anyway, this one was a doozy. No combats this time, but man oh man was the lore the hardest hitting lore of anything of any part of the campaign ever here in session 24. So to leave off, and again, you don't have to necessarily watch all of these to be able to get, you should, I mean, in general, you should, but these are self-contained in their application as far as the Dungeon Master perspective of running this campaign. So we left off last time in session 23, where Darius, the warlock slash druid type of caster, entered the dream of another player. They got sucked into the dream. They're in the dream, around the dream, able to interact with the dream, making checks, going further and further into the dream, and they're in there now. The player wakes up, and then what happens, right? So I had to improv a lot of this on the fly as far as what would happen, because I did not expect them to do this yet. I didn't expect him to roll that high for his dream rolls that he was making and just do this bold thing in the first place and go play in Dreamland. So we ended the session there, perfectly timing so, and I had a one-on-one session with this player, and it was about an hour and 15 minutes long on Discord voice comms, and we saw what happened. He dove into the dream realm, playing around, doing stuff, like figuring stuff out. Basically, the long story short of it is I as a side note, I took some time to really flesh out what the nightmare plane was. He's in this person's dream. They were having a nightmare. He's in it, and then he stays in there, and he moves through it. I have a whole... Let me know if you want to see the video that breaks down what the homebrew nightmare plane. I made up a plane of existence, the nightmare plane, the deep nightmare. It's a whole thing of this nightmare plane and how it works. It's the core of the planes of my campaign. It's the only plane of my campaign. This campaign right now only has the material plane and this nightmare plane, which also can shift into a dream plane or nightmare plane depending on which side, the dreamers or the nightmare side of this factions that are involved with that, which one reigns supreme, that plane is now that way. So he's playing around in this nightmare plane, trying to save Clara's parents. This is a nightmare. Keep in mind, Clara was having a nightmare, the artificer. Clara was having a nightmare that her mom and sister were getting kidnapped. And Darius went into that nightmare, and that's what was happening. He was trying to stop it, but at the end of the day, this is just a nightmare. He did not successfully stop and save them. There's multiple times where it came up, and he stopped the guards one time, but then he didn't stop the other guards. But then every other time he ran away and chose to ran instead of stopping them, right? If he had chose to stop the guards, he would have beat the dream. That pocket dimension of the nightmare plane would have died, and the energy, the negative energy associated would have been dissipated as well. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal, but he would have learned that's how it works. Did not learn that, but he did learn so much, and he did a great job in there of one-on-one role play session of what he's doing in the dream realm. So yeah, we did that. We went back and forth with it. He was able to figure out a way to escape from it, and then he went to talk to Sarathis and learned a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not going to lore dump everything that he figured out, but basically he figured out a lot of stuff about the history with the dragon curse and some things involving his character, that his character is actually cursed with a dragon, and he eventually will become a dragon once Sarathis is his warlock patron slash ancient green dragon. Once Sarathis dies, he becomes a dragon. He found that out. That was a really big lore bomb that I didn't think he was going to figure out like this. But he's talking to Sarathis, asking these questions, and finally using that rope, if you've been here from the beginning. But Sarathis has a bunch of secrets that he cannot share. If he does share with them, there's some lore implications. And this is a mechanic that I created as a dungeon master to not just let people with great knowledge just be able to tell everybody everything. There you go. Now you know the history of everything. So I created a system with that, but that's, again, too long of a thing for this thing. And if you've stayed with me through this whole time, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, he asked Sarathis a lot of questions about the nightmare plane, about what's going on, about where everything's going on. So he found out a whole bunch. And then Sarathis teleported him back to his group. So he ran this whole thing off, and I was like, all right, now you're going to be sitting at the table, and they are back in time technically from this one-on-one session we did. So we're going to run at the table. He's still going to be sitting at the table, and then we are going to see when you appear, and you'll see when you appear, right? And you can figure things out from there. So we now fast forward to tonight's session that we just had just now. I always film these right after the session. We start the session off. They're like, okay, well, where's Darius? Because his body just disappeared. Whenever he looked like he entered into the dream physically, which is technically not what happened. But they were trying to have to figure out everything that went down. So they are trying to talk about what to do and where we go. And then I had like, all right, let's finish up the night's rest and let's kind of get our bearings and all that stuff. So then they go to sleep, and then what wakes them up is Darius tree stride being shunted through a tree, magically so, by Sarathis. Sarathis sent him through a tree stride spell, whatever. Appears there, able to talk to them. The player, Jason, he did a great job. Darius's player did a great job relaying a lot of lore dump from an hour plus one-on-one session. But again, he didn't lore dump everything. It was just all the key points, and they were able to interact and talk about it. And then it was a really cool moment as a dungeon master. I loved it, just having the players talk about what's going on. Like, what about this? What about that? Well, that could be this. This could be that. It was cool to see them play around and interact with the world, because there is so much going on. And I'm going to give a big breakdown at the end of this as far as things I've learned from this campaign, because I always try and push myself as a dungeon master to my limits. And I think I've found some limits in some ways and did some things that I would do differently and stuff, but I'll save that for a whole different kind of breakdown. But anyway, they had a whole bunch of stuff figured out. They talked about it for a while as far as planning about what they're going to do, because they're in a spot right now where they really could do a lot. They really could do a lot, you know, as far as what could be done and what is going on, right? So, what do they do? Where do they go with this now? They head towards the Sanctuary. Sanctuary is the capital of the church in the entire, like, the world, like the nation's capital of the church, right? And they're heading there, and in that spot is the white dragon is being held captive there. Zalathrax, the dreaming drake, is being held and imprisoned there by this organization, and they are siphoning the dream magic from this weakened dragon. So that's where they're heading towards. Whatever they know about that is up to them. There's a lot of different things that they could go do, but I think the thing that they feel is that they're too weak to do it, when ultimately they're not. They have a lot of things at their disposal. They have a lot of capabilities and a lot of potential to do stuff, but I think they're underestimating themselves, and that's interesting. And I've tried to make it clear, and at the end of the session, I even talked to them, like, from a meta perspective. I was like, yeah, one thing you guys got to remember is, like, when y'all went down into those ruins, into the ancient civilization, and then the queen of the ancient civilization of the resurrection nation, she unlocked powers within you. You guys are way more powerful than you realize. And I said that, and then I cited references that they would know from like, you know, like, all right, you would definitely remember this, remember that. Like, these are moments that, like, that's kind of explained through this big, huge thing that happened, right? So, you know, because you can kind of lose sight of some things, and, like, characters level up, and, like, level 4 to 5, level 5 is all that kind of stuff, right? But I really wanted to make sure that they are aware of their power, so that all these different quests that are on their table that they can choose from, they could choose any of them, right? And I feel like they can't, right? So that's one thing I'm kind of playing around with. But and also I'm just listening as a dungeon master whenever they're talking and they're having these conversations. So I don't know where they're going to go next, but I do know there's a lot of different things on the table. They were talking about it. They finally get and travel to the Wanderers. They find the Wanderers. They talk with the leader of the Wanderers in this section, who's technically the lowest ranked of all the Wanderer leaders. But they met with him and talked with him and kind of got up to speed on stuff, shared some information, strategized some more about what's possible, because at the beginning of next session, they're going to choose to go somewhere. And it kind of sucks, honestly, as far as the timing of it goes. I really wish they could have chosen now to be able to do this, but big curveball for my group and big curveball for you guys. I'm adding a 5th player to the campaign. If you've been here from the beginning, this might be an exciting moment for you, because it's an exciting moment for me. But I am bringing back in the original player Odin, the original character Odin that started the campaign off. If you remember from way back at the beginning of this whole thing, this campaign started off with 4 players. But one of those players had to bow out, real life reasons. They were busy with a whole bunch of stuff that they had going on, just started a new job, just started all this kind of stuff, and they had a lot on their plate, understandably so. So left, right? And then I brought in one of the 3-year campaign I had. I brought in another player from there, and perfect fit, great, picked up running Ivar. That's the player, the fighter, right? So now we were back to 4 players, but school's over, some other things happening over the summer, some things have changed, and that original player is now going to join the group as the 5th player, and Odin will make his return with a homebrewed class that I will be revealing maybe in a main channel video, maybe later on here, but it's going to have a werewolf twist to it, and I'm super excited. So that is going to be a thing for sure, and he is going to join the group next session in a big reveal, and I'll save how the reveal is going to go for the beginning of next session 25, and how that goes. But basically, he's going to come over early and wait, hide somewhere in the house. They'll have no idea that he's making a return. It's been 20 sessions. He was here for 3 sessions, and it's been over 20 sessions now. He's going to make a return back to the group, and his character's coming back with some lore and some vengeance and some information and some cool stuff to keep things going. And I can't wait for that. I'm super excited for that reveal, because I'm going to reveal at the table, and then you see it's Odin. And that's going to be a signal he's going to come down. I'll share the whole thing whenever I'll give the play-by-play how that goes. I'm super excited for that. But yeah, that is going to be where we left things off, is a bunch of strategy. So not a lot happened as far as logistically, tactically, whatever. There's no combat. But man, oh man, was there a bunch of lore, and do they have more information to be able to now make their decision of what they're going to do next. Let's see what happens. I don't even know. And that's, like I said, from a Dungeon Master perspective, I wish they could have chosen now, because then I could have prepped it. But I've honestly been trying to prep less and just keep things broad. So my prep I'm going to do this next week. And actually, this next week, as a cool other side note, this video will release. Actually, no, it won't yet. I haven't made the announcement. So I'll keep that secret. A secret for myself, and I'll probably release that next video. Stay tuned to the main channel for all those big secret announcements, and keep thinking outside the box. Peace.